Good evening, everyone. My name is Kate Jang, and I'm so honored to be your Master of Ceremonies for this year's Sadako Peace Day. I'm currently a rising junior at Columbia University on the pre-medical track, and I have had the incredible opportunity to intern with the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation this past summer, right here in Santa Barbara. Over the past few weeks, I have been learning about nuclear disarmament, assisting the foundation by sorting through archival material, and helping organize community events, just like the one we're gathered for today. The Nuclear Age Peace Foundation, at its core, is dedicated towards advancing a world free of nuclear weapons through both advocacy and education. This includes uplifting the voices of those affected by nuclear violence. And among these voices includes that of Sadako Sasaki, a young girl who died from leukemia as a result of radiation exposure from the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. Sadako's story, which you will hear more about this evening, is a lasting symbol of peace and steadfast resilience. Today, we are gathered here to both remember Sadako and to reaffirm our commitment to peace. Tonight's program will feature wonderful speakers, poetry, and music that celebrate the humanity that drives our mission and movement forward. Thank you everyone for being here tonight. We will now hear from Sherry Purcell, who is the president of the Immaculate Heart community, which owns and operates the magnificent La Casa de Maria. The Nuclear Age Peace Foundation is proud of its decades-long partnership with the Immaculate Heart community and this beautiful garden that was built in 1995 for the very first Sadako Peace Day.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. On behalf of the community, we are so happy to have you back again this year. It has been 30 years since we collaborated with the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation to establish this beautiful garden. And we are very proud to be in partnership with you. The Immaculate community has owned this property in Montecito for 26 years. And over the years, the property has morphed from a novitiate for young nuns to a gathering place for spiritual seekers and retreatants who are seeking personal transformation and transformation on the world level. When Mother Nature brought down part of the mountain and washed away 9 of our buildings, including meeting rooms and offices in 2018, I found myself thinking about what was spared, what is still here. This peace garden is still here. This peace garden is still here. And I see that as a testimony to the prayers that are infused here and to the necessity of having a place like this to bring awareness to the continued existence of nuclear weapons in this world, and also to have a place to remember those whose lives were cut too short by the devastation of nuclear bombing. So the Immaculate Heart community welcomes you today to this Peace Day. We offer blessings for the essential work of the foundation to put an end to the proliferation of nuclear weapons, to reduce the risk of nuclear warfare, and transform this world into a place of peace and love. Blessings. Thank you.
We will now hear from Perie Longo, who is the chair of the Poetry Committee for NAPF and a member of its board of directors. Perie was Santa Barbara Poet Laureate 2007 through 2009. Her latest book of poems is titled Baggage Claim. She teaches poetry privately and as a psychotherapist facilitates poetry workshops for healing. Perie Longo will now read Hang On to Hope, an original poem by David Krieger.
Hello, everybody. So wonderful to see so many of you again and see new people here. And I'm delighted to have been asked to read a poem by David. David wrote many books of poetry and many essays and many books over many years. And I was going through a lot of his poems and writings and wanting to find something special that really somehow addressed what we're going through today. I met David, I don't even know how many years ago, I'm not even going to count them, in an adult ed class for writing poetry. And we hit it right off because we were both poets and we enjoyed each other's poetry and sense of humor. And at the time I was teaching poets in the schools, and he was taken with that. And I mentioned this poem I had found online somewhere, and it was very meaningful to him. And he said, this is why we do the work we do. And I want to read this poem to you. It's very short, and then I'll read David's poem. It was published in the North American Review in 2001, written by a fourth grader. The title of this is, If You Are Lucky in This Life, Cameron Penny. If you are lucky in this life, a window will appear on a battlefield between two armies. And when the soldiers look into the window, they don't see their enemies. They see themselves as children. And they stop fighting. And they go home. And they go to sleep. And when they wake up, the land is well again. Wow. Fourth grade. And so this was meaningful to us and, has followed us through, a lot of us through why we do the work we do to preserve our children. And here's David's poem written in 2017, Hang On to Hope. After fighting for peace and justice when we were young, we thought surely we had the power of transformation. It was our conceit, perhaps the conceit of every generation, to believe we could change the world. It turned out not to be so easy. Injustice and war are powerful adversaries, not worthy, but powerful opponents. Years later, we are still fighting, wondering about that great arc of history bending toward justice. It has become clear that the arc bends slowly. To move it may take many generations, even many lifetimes, perhaps millennia. Doing what is right takes courage. Never to give up takes even more courage. That's how peace with justice is waged. But we must hang on to hope as though the future of the world depended upon it. And it's a wild ride. So hang on, hang on, hang on. Thank you, David Krieger.
We will now hear from Dr. Jimmy Hara, who is the Vice Chair of the Board of Directors at the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation, Commissioner of the City of Los Angeles Fire Commission, a Professor of Family Medicine at the Charles Drew University of Medicine, and past President and currently Vice President of the Los Angeles Chapter of Physicians for Social Responsibility.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt called the bombing of Pearl Harbor a day of infamy. I will submit to you there are two additional days of infamy that we need to acknowledge. August the 6th, 1945, when Hiroshima was bombed, and ultimately over 140 individuals, women, children, and the elderly, not men, because men were fighting the war. And 3 days later, you had the bombing of Nagasaki. And here at least 70, maybe up to 80,000 individuals perished. I think I'm going to preface my remarks about Sadako, actually, by a quick word about what happens when bombs drop, nuclear warfare begins and everything. Everyone talks about the radiation, and I'll mention that, but the first thing that happens are blast effects, where just the power of the nuclear bomb just sends everything flying, and they turn into missiles of their own. And then heat that rivals the sun causes firestorms. I happen to be a fire commissioner in Los Angeles, and the firestorms that you would get as a result of nuclear bombs is amazing. And then, as time goes on, you get the radiation effects. The radioisotopes that we know occur and can cause cancer, actually, I-131, iodine 131, can cause thyroid cancer. And then you have the major cause of cancer is cesium-137. Cesium-137 enters the water. And in fields and everything, cattle grazing on that grass pick up the cesium. And cesium behaves just like potassium. It gets concentrated in fruits and in grasses and what have you. And after the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster, if you recall, a number of years back, everyone here in California wanted to get, iodine, potassium iodide, to protect themselves from the thyroid cancer that would be due to I-131. But cesium-137 is more diabolical and has a half-life of about 30 years. Strontium-90 also has a half-life of about 30 years, and it ends up concentrating in bone. And you'll hear the story of Sadako Sasaki, who wound up with leukemia as a result. And the most dangerous of all the radioisotopes that result from bombs detonating would be plutonium 237. And plutonium basically has a half-life of about 24,000 years. So it would remain for millennia, basically. And as I'm speaking right now, there are women in Japan who were exposed to the radiation from Hiroshima or Nagasaki, who are coming down with lung cancer because you get the vapors caused by plutonium that individuals breathe in, and they wind up with lung cancer. And so once again, women who never smoked ever at this time are dying of lung cancer in Japan. So let me share with you the story of Sadako Sasaki, and we're in the beautiful Sadako Peace Garden here. Sadako Sasaki was a young child who, when the atomic bomb was detonated in Hiroshima, and she actually survived the bomb, and she grew up to be a very healthy, athletic young girl. She prided herself in being the fastest girl in her school. And so she tried out for the relay team for her school. along with her best friend, Shizuko Hamamoto. And both of them, they qualified, they made the team. But then Sadako collapsed. And it turned out the reason she collapsed is that she had what the Japanese call genbakubyo, literal translation, atomic bomb disease, better known as leukemia. So she got hospitalized. Early in her hospital stay, her best friend Shizuko Hamamoto came with a piece of origami paper. And Sadako said, "What's this all about? What's the origami for?" He says, "Don't you know, if you can fold 1,000 paper cranes, you can get any wish that you want." So family and friends would bring origami paper, and she would dutifully fold paper cranes. As time went on, Shizuko came by and said, what's your wish? What would you want, if you can fold 1,000 paper cranes? And she said, first off, to get over this stupid disease that I have, but then for you and I to win ribbons for our school with our relay team. Well, as time went on and she wasn't getting any better, when Shizuko visited Sadako, Sadako said, I no longer, think I'm going to be able to get better and join you, with the relay team. So what I'm going to do with all the paper cranes that I've already folded, I'm going to inscribe Heiwa, literally peace in English, and I'm going to inscribe that on the wings of all these paper cranes and have them fly all over the globe, spreading peace. Depending upon, the version that you hear, she only was able to fold 644 paper cranes. But her brother, Masahiro Sasaki, says that actually she folded 1,450 paper cranes. But whatever you believe, but the point is she passed away. And so at the time of her memorial service, at the altar, there were 10,000 paper cranes that were brought in. And the city of Hiroshima, knowing about Sadako Sasaki, they erected a statue in her honor, the Sadako Sasaki Memorial Statue, which stands right in front of the Hiroshima Peace Museum. And every year on this day, there are about a dozen or more schools in Japan that have the honor of folding paper cranes, so that every August 6th, there are going to be 10,000 paper cranes adorning that statue. And that statue, the inscription on it reads, "Hear our prayer, hear our cry, peace on earth."
We will now participate in a two-crane ceremony with Nancy Charkoloff-Martin, who is an artist, mother and grandmother, certified Reiki master, licensed massage therapist, dream tender, gatekeeper, production designer, and spiritual elder on indie film sets for Adirisa Productions.
Welcome, friends, relatives, ancestors, because we know they're here. I thought I was prepared to do this, but just bear with me. So Janice Garrett, who is sitting, where are you, Janice? Hiding over there. There's a lot of photos of the cranes that have gone all over the world. I took one to my relatives on the island of Guam in January. And it's the hope that more can reach the lands beyond this city and this place. So you'll see 3 baskets filled with cranes, and it is said, thank you for reminding us, that if you fold 1,000 cranes, you will be granted your wish. May it be so. I will write peace on the wings of mine and take them to Rome, to Sicily, and continue this. These cranes were folded last year as a part of an event called the Kindness Quest, which supported 6 nonprofit organizations. La Casa de Maria was the winner of that event. Last month, one of these cranes was sent to His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, in Dharamshala to honor his 90th birthday. The rest of these cranes are here with us today, marking the 80th anniversary of the bombing in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. There are not enough words to explain, so I appreciate everybody that has come forward before me to speak to this. So I'm going to invite you in silence to come and pick 2 cranes. One is to remember this day and what happened 80 years ago. And the second crane is for you to send peace out into the world. Take the time to write peace on the wing. So our wonderful interns are going to, if anybody cannot come up, please raise your hand and they'll bring cranes to you. And I want to chant this song. It's called Tavara Govita, which is an old Irish, Ita is Old Irish for thirst. And it's used to describe a kind of spiritual thirst that is born when we truly see that our lives are not being lived in harmony with our soul's needs. And may we all take the necessary steps to initiate real interchange on our path. Creator, give us the inextinguishable thirst of the realized beings. We thirst for inner strength these days, during these times. There is a call for peace. A call for world peace. May our global communities feel the reverberation of this offering. I offer this medicine in a good way and to the best of my ability. And I'm giving gratitude to Fionn-Tulloch, who taught me this song on this land a long, long time ago. So if you don't mind, can you, in silence, come and collect your cranes and then return to your seats? Many blessings to all of you. Thank you for being here.
We will now hear from Jordan A.Y. Smith. Dr. Smith writes a variety of poetry styles and translates poetry mostly between Japanese and English. While teaching Japanese literature and culture at UCLA, he is building the SoCal Sonnet Society and apprenticing for a credential in poetry as therapy. Jordan Smith will read his original poem, When Fish Play Baseball, Koi Pond in the Heart of the Bomb.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to join you all for this reading and the inspiration to write something new. When fish play baseball, koi pond in the heart of the bomb. My last brush with death was with my recently deceased friend, Norm, the Swedish giant of smiles. Norm built a koi pond in the backyard of their family home, protected from hungry raccoons by a pavilion hung with netting. Summers saw the koi living up to their reps, lazy, contented, mouthed fishies, languid until the first sign of food coming their way. But give those fish a waterfall, and you would see the transformation. Suddenly hope would glimmer between their gills, refract at the top of the cascade as they swam against all odds. Come sleet or snow or hail or rain, come acidity, acridity, humidity, humility, they would swim right up the flow of it all. And just as they did, according to legend, across the Pacific, the ocean of peace, at Hiroshima Castle, just 2.9 kilometers from the Red Cross Hospital, where doctors must have put on extra layers of bedside manner to help Sadako in her fight against the leukemia. The year Sadako reached 6 years old, going on 7, or what turned out to mean middle-aged in the Hiroshima years of back then, after everyone knows what, after everyone should know what, after everyone should remember what. And in between castle and hospital, the blue skies over Japan echoed once more with the crack of baseball bats, cleats on dirt, leather mitts flapping their catches for strikes, balls, outs, and safes. Hiroshima needed a team, and teams need names, and names need the power of symbols. So what about the carp? Those koi fish at the castle, their legendary resolve in swimming up a waterfall, myth alleging that when they reach the top, they leap over the dragon gate where the carp themselves turn into dragons. This time, at the field that had become the Mazda Zoom Zoom station, home of the carp, Hiroshima Toyo Carp. It has a ring to it. Other proposals were considered to name the new team's mascot the Bears, but why? The Rainbows, too high. The Doves, too much peace. Or the Atoms, yeesh. At least, let's smoke signal hope. After all, hope is dope. Hope is for popes. Hope is also gross. Even icky hope floats. Everything floats down here, but hope excels at floating. Hope floats in flotillas, rose boats like gorillas, crossed with whales for Godzillas. Hope floats in a pretty how town with up so floating many carp down. August 6, 1945, the dragon came, speaking the language of nuclear physics, a dragon and a carp, quantum entangled, raining down, then sideways, then back up, in a cascade this time of precise terms. Fissile material, the heart of a bomb containing either plutonium-239 or highly enriched uranium-235, fission, energy from split nuclei, the tamper, dense, often uranium-238 surrounds the fissile core to reflect neutrons back in, increasing the efficiency of the chain reaction and inertia to compress the core during implosion. Simultaneous detonation shockwaves compresses the fissile material. A neutron burst initiates the fission chain reaction. Detonators ignite the high explosives, ensuring uniform and powerful compression of the fissile core. Fuses installed as safety mechanisms to prevent accidental detonation, making goddamn sure that each time it will be on purpose. And who can swim up such a waterfall? At 12 years, young dragon with her 1,000 attendants, her flock of cranes, wing beating every gust of wind to puff and spin the pop flies and line drives as runners round bases and fans get to moom 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 on the carp udon and okonomiyaki, free for another day to play in the peaceful ripples of a fragile alliance in the koi pond that has welled up in the heart of the bomb. Thank you.
We will now hear from Erica Kokor and Valeriya Zherebtsova, who are my fellow Columbia University students. Through a Laidlaw Fellowship at Columbia, the three of us have been able to work with the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation this summer and to travel to Japan in a couple of weeks to visit Hiroshima ourselves and participate in the Choose Hope Symposium, which will take place on August 24 and 25 in Hiroshima. The symposium is being organized by Soka Gakkai International in partnership with the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation. Erica and Valeriya will share why they care about nuclear disarmament.
Hello everyone, I want to thank you again for joining us for the 31st Annual Sadako Peace Day. My name is Erica Kokor and I am a rising junior at Columbia University studying biochemistry. As Kate just mentioned, we started interning this summer with the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation after we attended the third meeting of the States Party on the TPNW and the 2025 NPT Preparatory Committee conferences in New York City. However, my disarmament journey began last summer when I conducted research under Professor Emlyn Hughes with the K1 project at Columbia. And now I want to share a short excerpt from the essay that started launching my commitment to nuclear justice. 3, 2, 1. Someone pressed the red button and flames shot out of the sky. The light was blinding, but everyone slowly turned to witness their work come to fruition. It was silent in Los Alamos for at least an entire minute, if not more. Then you feel the heat before hearing anything. Flames completely engulf you, then silence. Then you see Dr. Oppenheimer removing his protective glasses to witness the mushroom cloud in full. More flames, silence. And now I am become death. The destroyer of worlds, Oppenheimer said. Then it was like the bomb hit for a second time. Reverberations of a blast echo in every direction. A strong gust of wind propels you backward. Then you're taken aback by the abruptness of it all. But after a second of realization, all but one scientist erupted in celebration. That one, I. Robbie, a former Columbia faculty member and professor, had refused to work on the project, believing that when you drop a bomb, it falls on the just and the unjust. Still, cheers arose all around. The Manhattan Project, some say, was a success, but at what cost? That scene, the Trinity test, as portrayed in Oppenheimer, really stuck with me. For a few seconds, it really felt like time had completely stopped, when in reality, it marked the beginning of a new and dangerous era. What the film left unsaid was the cost of that moment, the silence that followed, the people harmed. And from then on, I started to wonder what science can do to change the world, not just through discovery, but through responsibility. Soon after, I had the chance to attend an NAPF screening of The Vow of Hiroshima, a documentary that follows lifelong activist in Hibakusha, Setsuko Thurlow, and I also had the chance to hear testimonies from 2 other Hibakusha, which completely changed the way that I viewed the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki forever, not just as abstract history, but as lived trauma. Soon after, in an op-ed I wrote, "Darkness, smoke, piles of bodies. That is what one survivor described. One of the few who was able to make it to the light. Freezing temperatures, famine, mass death. This is the future of a world with nuclear weapons. This is what could follow nuclear war. So, this is why I care. As an aspiring scientist and global citizen, I cannot sit back as victims, survivors, and activists are ignored, as science itself is ignored. But in my time here, I've learned that it's simply not enough just to care. We cannot let our compassion exist in silence. The Manhattan Project showed us that science itself does not exist in a vacuum. Every discovery, every breakthrough, it carries weight. And as Ian E.J. Hill writes, technologies do not kill alone, and neither do people. Responsibility lives not only in the action, but in what follows. The refusal to acknowledge, the failure to change. But I believe in the power of science to repair as much as it can destroy. As both current and future leaders, citizens, and scientists, I believe it is our responsibility to ask not only what we can do, but what we should do. And that's why I, as I presume many of you, keep working. For those who survived, for those that didn't, and for the generations who deserve to grow up in a world where their governments choose peace over power. Oppenheimer became death, destroyer of worlds. But as those that are still here, we must do everything we can to prevent destruction and become life. The future is in our hands. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erica. My name is Valeriya. It is an honor to participate in the Sadako Peace Day this year. I first learned about the underlying mechanism of nuclear weapons during physics lesson at high school. My teacher also told us about the Soviet physicist Andrei Sakharov, who was one of the creators of the largest nuclear weapon ever detonated, called the Tsar bomb. He regretted building such a powerful weapon of mass destruction that, as he said, threatens the existence of humanity. Sakharov called the nuclear war a collective suicide of mankind and dedicated the rest of his life to advocating against the use of nuclear weapons and calling for an end to the arms race. This astonished me. I believe that all the scientists should always feel proud of their inventions. But this was clearly not the case for Sakharov. This story made me realize how different nuclear weapons are from anything that has been created before. Nothing can be compared to their destructive power. Today there are thousands of nuclear weapons that can reach any location in the world and lead to hundreds of millions of deaths, possibly billions. What's most threatening is that currently there are a few individuals in the world who have nuclear launch authority, meaning they are authorized to solely make a decision to use nuclear weapons. It is terrifying to think that the fate of the whole world is in their hands. Throughout my work with Nuclear Age Peace Foundation, I attended the plenary sessions at the United Nations, where the diplomats from around the world gathered to discuss nuclear disarmament and nuclear non-proliferation. I was astonished by how vigorously some of the country representatives were voicing their support for nuclear deterrence. They argued that nuclear disarmament is unnecessary because they firmly believe that the threat of retaliation would prevent any country from using nuclear weapons. At first glance, it seems logical and reliable. Why would anyone use nuclear weapons if that would lead to the destruction of their own country? However, every single day, we witness politicians acting not for the good of a society, but out of their personal goals and ideas. So why should we rely on their good intentions and rationality when we are talking about such a dangerous issue as nuclear weapons? And most importantly, as David Krieger once said, how did we come to live so relatively comfortably with the concept of mutual assured destruction? However, government is only one side of the issue. It is also really important to raise public awareness of nuclear weapon threats. Potential use of nuclear weapons and consequent nuclear war are often mentioned in the context of the recent geopolitical situation in the world. And for some people, nuclear war is still something too unrealistic and can even become a subject for jokes. Not so long ago, I stumbled upon a comical video about nuclear war that featured nuclear mushroom at the background. And this is unacceptable. And this is why it is really important to raise public awareness of the risks associated with nuclear weapons and inspire more people to join the movement for their complete abolition. How can we happily live in the world knowing that everything around us can be fully destroyed in just a few minutes and hundreds of millions of people would die in the blink of an eye? I'm here today because I believe that there should be no nuclear weapons in this world. I choose to hope that a nuclear weapons-free future is possible. As David Krieger wrote in one of his books, hope makes change possible. And I know that everything we do today has power to change the future. Thank you.
We will now hear from George Yatchisin, who is Santa Barbara Poet Laureate 2025 through 2027 and author of Feast Days and the First Night We Met. First Night We Thought the World Would End. He is co-editor of the anthology Rare Feathers, Poems on Birds and Art, and his poetry appears in many anthologies. George Yatchisin will read his original poem in praise of the peace pigeon.
It's an honor to get to address you all and to be part of this solemn, necessary, but hopeful moment and movement. I think this poem will just stand for itself. In praise of the peace pigeon. Just because it's more petite and drags along centuries of myth-making, ask Aphrodite or Noah or Gilgamesh or Picasso. We must never forget the dove is indistinguishable from the pigeon. Sure, their sweetest song is a coo, but mid-flight, careening, pigeons let out a kind of cackle that underscores even they are amazed they're airborne. It's all avian anxiety lacking any grace. You never see a pigeon adroitly alight with an olive branch offering in its beak. Nope, their passage ends with a screech and flutter and flap, a casual crash during which their beady pupils practically dilate. Still, how much we owe the awkward pigeon. For centuries, the only ways for humans to connect over great distances, to fight often those who ferociously invaded. Just ask Cher Ami, the messenger bird who saved countless World War I soldiers trapped behind enemy lines. So let us believe the ungainly pigeon provides a model for every single one of us. Fumbling as we are, humble and defenseless, we can push the world toward the right road of peace. Perhaps fold over 1,000 paper cranes. Perhaps diffuse the Able Archer or Cuban Missile crises. Or perhaps simply drop from the sky with a no that starts as distraction, always the first step to stop. Why coo when it's time to draw attention, to call the world awake, to admit love if often and in elegant recognition of you, is also an essential enough. Thank you.
We will now hear from Dr. Ivana Nikolić Hughes, who is the president of the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation and a senior lecturer in chemistry at Columbia University. Dr. Hughes will speak about how the world needs to move forward 80 years after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Good evening, everyone. I am so deeply touched and inspired to be with all of you this evening and to remember the victims and the survivors of the atomic bombings in Hiroshima and Nagasaki and all innocent victims of war. Thank you for being with us on this very special, very beautiful evening, very meaningful evening, when we wonder about what we have learned or what we have not learned in the 80 years since Sadako Sasaki and so many others were hurt in the atomic bombings. Thank you to all of the amazing participants who have given us so much to think about and have engendered such strong feelings and passions. I'm so deeply grateful to everyone who has spoken and shared their beautiful music, their beautiful poetry, and their beautiful words and remarks. It is not just that nuclear weapons have caused so much devastation, pain, and suffering in Japan, and also throughout the world. We all know here that the very first nuclear explosion took place actually not that far from here in New Mexico. This was the explosion that Erica was describing, the so-called Trinity test. There really wasn't anything, there was no experiment to it. It was a full-blown nuclear explosion, one that actually spread radiation to nearby communities who suffer from that exposure to this day. Just less than a month later, just a couple of weeks later, we know what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But it's what began happening after mere months throughout the world. The first place that was affected by nuclear explosions, the so-called nuclear testing program of the United States, was the Marshall Islands. That began, the very first explosions in the Marshall Islands were in July of 1946, so less than a year after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And then it went on and on and on, all around the world, not just the United States, not just the Soviet Union, but at this point, 9 nuclear armed states. And it's not just the past devastation, it's not just the current suffering. It's exactly what Erica and Valeriya and Kate have been sharing, that these bombs, these weapons could destroy our world as we know it. It is not an exaggeration. It is not just the deaths of people who would live in the cities that would be attacked. It is the nuclear winter. It is the ozone layer destruction. It is the end of civilization with things like something we call the electromagnetic pulse, which could destroy electric grids in entire countries. You only need, actually, for the United States, 3 nuclear weapons exploded high up in the atmosphere, no more electricity. This is not your blackout in which electricity comes back hours or days later. The electricity is not coming back. Can you imagine how we would live if that happened? So the path forward, what do we need to do? We need to do what David Krieger and Frank K. Kelly and many others who've been devoted and connected to the foundation over the years, thought was the solution in 1982 when they founded the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation. The mission then and the mission today was to educate and advocate for a world free of nuclear weapons. That world, quite simply, has to happen. Today, we're just as committed to this mission as ever. We work at the United Nations on the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, and we work on implementing this treaty. We work on promoting this treaty. We work on trying to put pressure not just on the United States, but worldwide on all countries to join together and to say that enough is enough, that the end of the nuclear age must come, and it cannot come a moment too soon. It's been 80 years. We have been lucky. The Nuclear Age Peace Foundation, when it was founded, there was always a belief that in the nuclear age you had to have peace, and yet here we are. I don't need to tell you about how terrible the current conditions are in the world. I don't need to name the conflicts. You all know them. There is too much strife, too much conflict, and this danger hanging over all of us. President John F. Kennedy called it the sword of Damocles hanging over the entire humanity. That was in 1961. He spoke at the United Nations in 1961 and talked about how we need to eliminate nuclear weapons before they eliminate us. And yet here we are, more than 60 years later, and we still must reach that goal. So let me just say a couple of words about my own time at the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation. I stood at this podium 3 years ago, so this is my fourth Sadako Peace Day, and it has truly been one of the absolute highlights of my year. I love meeting people in Santa Barbara. For those of you who don't know, I actually live in New York City, and I do come here and very much enjoy the weather, whether it's winter or summer. It's always better here. But for me, really the highlight of my time, and I've had so many meaningful experiences, both here in Santa Barbara and in many ways around the world. But the most meaningful of all of them have really been the opportunities to meet people such as yourselves, and to meet people committed to these issues from around the world. And in so many ways, the most special community of people that I've had the honor of meeting are the hibakusha, are the survivors of the atomic bombings in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I've had the honor of meeting Setsuko Thurlow. I had the honor last year of meeting Mr. Teramo Tanaka, who was the longtime Secretary General of Nihon Hidankyo. Nihon Hidankyo is the Japanese organization that won the Nobel Peace Prize last year. And I was with him in Nagasaki at the Atomic Bomb Museum. We participated in a symposium. I gave a keynote speech, and it was such a humbling experience because I quite simply felt like, why am I giving this speech? I should be just here to listen and to learn. And we stood together at the Hypocenter in Nagasaki and laid a wreath. The most amazing thing about meeting Mr. Tanaka was that he quite simply had, throughout our time together, had a smile on his face. He was so, and remains so committed to this topic, to this issue. And I just felt that if he can do this at over 90 years old, then it is quite simply incumbent upon all of us to continue to spread the message of peace and to promote and advance a world free of nuclear weapons. So I'll end by telling you that while I was in Nagasaki, I was only there for a couple of days, and most of my time was organized by my hosts, and I was at the Atomic Bomb Museum and participating in the symposium and having various activities. But the very first morning, I had arrived there very late at night, and the very first morning my hosts had left time for me to they thought I might need a little more time to rest. And so I decided, having had a view from my hotel room of the hills of Nagasaki, I decided that I was just gonna go outside and go into the hills. And after walking for about an hour and a half in the hills of Nagasaki, I came back to the hotel room, and I have to admit, I am not a poet. I am not Perie or George or Jordan or David Krieger, but I was so inspired by what I experienced walking in the hills of Nagasaki that I decided to write a poem. And I did share the poem with Perie, and then as we were planning this event, Perie said, "And you must read your poem about the hills of Nagasaki." So it's Perie's fault that I'm reading this poem. So I'm gonna share it with you. The hills of Nagasaki. The hills call me to witness not just their beauty, but also their pain. We tried. We really did, they seem to say. We stopped the blast from getting farther. We held the radiation close. We offered shelter to the thirsty bodies, and we brought back the first rose. Now there's life bustling everywhere, but we know what it was like when all there was agony and fear, when so many lost all that was dear. Thank you for your visit, and please do pass on the message of never again, not just here, but everywhere. Thank you so much.
Last, but certainly not least, we will once again hear from Bob Sedivy, who will be performing on the shakuhachi, a 5-holed vertical bamboo flute of Japan. Bob was certified in Japan as a Komuso monk and is an accomplished practitioner and teacher of this ancient instrument of Zen. Bob will be performing Tsuibo no Kyoku, Song of Remembrance and Yearning.
It's indeed my honor to close this program with this song of remembrance. I'm going to ask this is a group participation piece. Your part is not to listen to me. Listen to the sounds around us. The sounds I play have a lot of silence in them. And when we hear a car go by or someone coughing, a train, invariably an airplane in the softest part, accept these sounds. They are what is happening right now. In fact, do more than accept them, welcome them. Every sound that we hear makes this time, this last hour so special. So I dedicate this song to the Hibakusha and those who have lost their lives, not just in those bombings, but in any war. And let's all, your part is to hold them in your heart for the next 4 minutes. as I play Tsuibo no Kyoku.
Thank you, Bob, for an amazing performance. And thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. That concludes our program, and we wish you a happy evening.
Thank you.